All right, Kevin, from one Game 7 in Boston to the Bay Area where they are hoping they can force a Game 7. The Warriors are against the Raptors. Raptors back at practice today, 2 days after coming within just 1 point of shutting down the two-time defending champions. The reality is, though, pardon the pun, but the ball is still in the Raptors' court. Warriors are the ones that must win. So Kawhi Leonard and company, they're maintaining perspective.
Just from any other game, just look at our mistakes, try not to make them again, and go out there in the next game and, just play with each other, have one focus and, one goal, and, try to win it out.
Tomorrow will be a tough task, and we'll be ready to go. We'll be ready to play basketball. 48 minutes on that hardwood and go out there and do our jobs and play extremely hard.
Sports on the Road continues now live from the Bay Area, and Michael Wilbon from PTI joins me now live from downtown San Francisco. And Michael, this Raptors team, they know, frankly, that they let one get away, and that can, as we've seen in the past, that can be really difficult to overcome and try to move on from. What is the biggest thing they need to overcome tomorrow night when they hit the court? What's the most important thing?
Well, Sage, I don't think they'll have the same set of conditions, and the primary condition being they seem to think, at least some members of the team, that they had a little cushion, and they played like they thought they had some cushion, up 3-1. And, as we often know from players who have been through this over the years and former players, they were telling members of the Raptors, you can't do that. You've got to play as if this is your own Game 7 at home. They didn't do that, at least not until late in the game in the fourth quarter. So they won't have that set of conditions. Now, on the road, up 3-2, I don't think they're going to approach this like they have a cushion, because they don't. Even though this is technically not a must-win game for the Raptors in the pursuit of a championship. But I think we'll see a much more urgent sort of attitude and performance out of Toronto earlier in that game instead of sort of waiting until the fourth quarter as they did in Game 5.
A win would be so impressive for obvious reasons, but if they bring down the champs by beating them 4 times in one season at Oracle, it'll be the first time that's happened. Nobody had done that 3 times, except the Warriors came in, the Raptors came in and did just that the other night. Okay, we were sitting together in Toronto, Michael, for Game 5 when Kevin Durant went down, and I mean, again, this is media. Nobody's biased, and there was a collective sigh. As far as his future is concerned, we hope for his recovery quickly. But as far as that future is concerned, Michael, how do you think now this injury will impact the decision Kevin has to make about his future?
Well, of course, Sage, it was a collective groan, I think, to be fair, that we all sort of let out when we saw that happening. And nobody's talked to Kevin Durant yet. But I have talked to people who have been free agents, a lot of current and former players. And what I find interesting, and I pose one question to them, Sage. If you suffered this injury, could you see yourself going to a new team, not just a new team and new teammates, but a new medical staff? How would that work? And unanimously, I've gotten people shaking their heads saying they don't think they would approach it that way. If they had a chance to stay with a familiar medical staff. And by the way, remember, it's only year 1 of this particular group, this particular staff at Golden State.
Okay.
But still, they think it's difficult to go somewhere else and rehab and miss a year. It's not about the money. It's not about the opportunity. It's not about whether people want Kevin Durant. They still do. The question is now, and we'll find out eventually, how Kevin Durant feels about rehabbing from such a serious injury, one that hardly anybody has come back full strength, 100% from since they've had it. Other things, broken legs, torn ACLs, people have come back just as good as new or close to it. Not so with torn Achilles. So we've got a lot to find out and to see how Kevin Durant feels about the possibility of switching teams and not having familiar surroundings and people around him working with him every day.
Now, along with the staff, it's also the fact that, hey, I stay here and I can probably continue to win championships right here with the staff and the players that he knows. Michael Wilbon, we appreciate your perspective. As always, see you tomorrow night for Game 6 down on the court, Sports Center at Oracle. So after the Raptors took Game 1 at home, the road teams won Games 2 through 5. Think about this, guys, because this series marks just the 3rd time in finals history that the road teams have won 4 straight games. It happened in 1974 and 1990, but that's it. However, there has never been an NBA Finals where the road teams won 5 consecutive games, so history could happen again tomorrow night. All right, Kevin, again, counting it down to tip off a Game 6 of the NBA Finals tomorrow. While KD's injury and the comeback dominated the attention in Game 5, Draymond Green did pick up his 6th technical foul of the postseason, and that means if he gets another one, if he gets one in Game 6 and they extend it to a Game 7, he would be suspended for that Game 7. Here's Draymond today.
You're one technical away from the suspension. How aware of that do you have to be? How much do you have to remind yourself of that, and how tough is that to do in the heat of battle?
I'm very aware, and it's not that tough. Just play the game. You gotta go win the game. You don't try and take extra emotion or whatever it is into the game ain't gonna help you win it. It's enough motivation there to get to a Game 7 and try to win another championship.
And with that, we welcome in ABC and ESPN's Jeff Van Gundy joining us as Sports Around the World continues from downtown San Francisco. And Jeff, thank you for being here. As always, we have seen this before from Draymond Green. Of course, you were there front and center when Draymond was suspended for Game 5 of the NBA Finals in 2016 against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So he says he's aware. If you're Steve Kerr, how do you manage this with Dre?
Well, I don't think you take any special precautions. You just, throughout the years that they've been together, there's constant communication. Green knows what's at stake, not only to win the game, but to position himself, if possible, for a 7th game. And so I don't think you'll see him get a technical foul. And the officials will know that they can't give one out just to set a tone. They know what's at stake as well. And so I don't think it'll be a problem tomorrow night.
And Draymond Green, as we all know, I mean, he's the heart and soul. He's the emotional heartbeat of this team. Again, he's aware. We move on. So from Steve Kerr, I asked you to put yourself in his shoes. How about Nick Nurse's shoes? Because the Raptors were this close to winning the first championship in franchise history. So now anything can happen, Jeff, that we're back here for a Game 6 at Oracle against the defending champions. What's your mindset? What are you telling your team if you're in Nick Nurse's shoes right now?
Well, I think this is what happens in the playoffs. You have some exhilarating wins and you have some deflating losses. And so you have to be able to deal with both and stay as emotionally even keel as possible. They have a team that is healthier. They have home court advantage still. They got 2 shots at it. And if you're Nick Nurse, all you're trying to do, to me, is get your team to lock in on what's next. And they've played exceptionally well here in games 3 and 4. And I would expect them to play an outstanding game tomorrow night.
Yeah, basically do what they've been doing for the majority of this series and this season, for that matter. Game 6, they know they're going to be facing it because those fans will be on fire for officially the last game in the 47-year history of Oracle Arena. Jeff Van Gundy, front and center for Game 6. Look forward to the call tomorrow night, Jeff. Thank you for joining us.
You got it.
For the Bruins before they host the Blues tonight for Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. We have Levy and Melrose standing by live from Boston coming up, Sage.
Yep, Kevin, so much news to get to NBA related, including the news that came down today that unfortunately we all expected. Thanks to Kevin Durant himself, he took to Instagram to announce that he indeed suffered a ruptured Achilles tendon in Game 5 in Toronto 2 nights ago. And this is the picture that KD posted himself along with a very lengthy caption that we'll get to you in just a couple of minutes. But as you can see, this was shortly after Kevin Durant underwent surgery to repair that ruptured Achilles, surgery which he says was successful. Huge news, obviously, from Oakland. We'll have more on that. Plus, Steve Kerr's statement, Kevin, that he would do it all over again and play KD in Game 5. So stand by for that.
Yeah, we have a huge development in the NBA on another story. Anthony Davis trade talk. Sources are telling ESPN that the Celtics and Lakers are engaged in trade discussions for the 26-year-old 6-time All-Star. Adrian Wojnarowski has been reporting that the Pelicans hope to trade Davis before the NBA draft, which is now 8 days away. Great to have Woj here and joining us now. Let's start with the Lakers here. Where do they stand in these trade talks?
Los Angeles has put in their offer Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, the 4th pick in next Thursday's NBA draft. Those are the players involved in the discussion. So far, we're told Kyle Kuzma is not a part of it. What New Orleans would like, in the conversations they've had, are taking that number 4 pick and canvassing teams around the league to see if they can flip number 4 into a young star or a veteran star around the league who would be sent to New Orleans, and then that 3rd team would take the 4th overall pick. That's where the talks are centered right now with LA.
All right, we'll get to the Celtics and what they're talking about right now in a moment. But let's talk about this this recent conversation that Anthony Davis's agent Rich Paul had with SI, telling them they could trade for him. That is the Celtics, but it'll be for 1 year in the event that he decides to walk away and give away assets. Don't blame Rich Paul, as Davis can become a free agent in the summer of 2020. So how do the Celtics view the idea of maybe having Anthony Davis in Boston as a 1-year rental?
Well, Boston all along has been determined to still use the assets they have to get at an Anthony Davis trade. It was complicated. It's been complicated by the fact that Kyrie Irving has seriously considered leaving Boston in free agency. They had hoped that getting AD, having Kyrie, would convince both of them to sign long term. But Boston so far has been undeterred. They've heard this since the fall. Anthony Davis Sr. Said that to Ramona Shelburne earlier this year. Rich Paul has privately told the Celtics that, but Danny Ainge so far is stayed in these conversations, and he has been engaged with David Griffin in New Orleans. Remember, Dave Griffin came up in the Phoenix Suns organization underneath Danny Ainge, probably as close to him as any GM in the league.
You mentioned the assets. What are the assets you're hearing in Boston right now?
Listen, I think Boston's assets are more fluid. It's very clear in LA who you're going to put in a deal. But there's really two ways to go in Boston. If Boston is willing to do Jason Tatum and maybe not a lot else, or perhaps a deal built around Jaylen Brown and then a bevy of those future Boston picks. But the one thing with New Orleans, if Tatum did get into an offer, he's the best available player for the Pelicans, probably in any deal they might talk to.
Okay, now how does this KD injury now impact Boston when it comes to the trade talks?
It emboldens Boston to believe they can re-engage Kyrie Irving now and say, listen, we can give you your co-star running mate here for the next several years in Anthony Davis, because right now, you know, KD, if they were to go to a New York or a Brooklyn together, as they had considered the possibility of doing, both those teams have max salary slots available for both. Kevin Durant's going to be a redshirt next year. He's not going to play next season. And then he'll be coming back off an Achilles injury at 32 years old. It opens the door back up for Boston to sell an Anthony Davis-Kyrie Irving partnership with the Celtics.
All right, keep these two dates in mind. June 20th is the NBA draft. June 30th is when NBA free agency can begin. Woj, thank you so much. Sage?
Let's keep it going here. Sports Center on the Road is presented by Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans on another beautiful day here in Northern California. Oakland in the 70s as you take a look at the Bay Bridge connecting Oakland and San Francisco. A beautiful day, but a very windy day. So appropriately, we have ESPN's Brian Windhorst joining me now with further insight into these. Thank you. So much to absorb from what Woj just said, and I know you have more.
Yeah, so there's good news and bad news for Lakers fans. The good news is that the New York Knicks, who could have bid against them strongly with their #3 draft pick, appear not to be heavily involved in these talks right now, which means they look to be focused on R.J. Barrett at #3 and moving forward from there. The bad news for the Lakers is that the Pelicans still don't like their offer. If they liked their offer, they wouldn't be out shopping the #4 pick that they have in the offer. So the Lakers still may have to sweeten it, especially if the Pelicans cannot get that #4 pick, a star for that #4 pick. But I will say that this is really gaining traction. For the first time, to me, I genuinely believe that the Pelicans are serious about trading Anthony Davis. I don't think they were ever serious about doing it in February. I think they are serious about it now. The next 24, 48 hours could be very important.
That because of David Griffin now being in town?
And because they seem to want to take advantage of the draft coming up, whether it's acquiring the pick or flipping the pick to a player.
Okay, we shall see. And as Kevin said, the dates, they really matter. That's why this is heating up right now, all leading up to June 30th when everybody can become a free agent, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Sunday, June 30th. Back to the news now that is huge here in the Bay Area regarding Kevin Durant and his announcement that he ruptured his Achilles tendon as feared from Game 5 in Toronto. And this is the picture that he posted. Pretty dramatic, Brian. It's coming right off his surgery. Yeah. He posted it about 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And again, 2 days after he went down in Game 5 after the right calf injury that sidelined him since May 8th. And here's the post by Kevin, very lengthy. This is what it said in part. What's good, everybody? I wanted to update you all. I did rupture my Achilles. Surgery was today, and it was a success. Easy money. My road back starts now. Like I said Monday, I'm hurting deeply, but I'm okay. Basketball is my biggest love, and I wanted to be out there that night because that's what I do. I wanted to help my teammates on our quest for the three-peat, end quote. Here's Steve Kerr today.
Kevin checked all the boxes, and he was cleared to play by everybody involved. Now, would we go back and do it over again? Damn right. But that's easy to say after the results. When we gathered all the information, our feeling was the worst thing that could happen would be a re-injury of the calf. And at that point, once Kevin was cleared to play, he was comfortable with that. We were comfortable with that. So the Achilles came as a complete shock.
You know, Steve Kerr and the Golden State Warriors organization, they've taken on a lot of criticism since this decision to play him 2 days ago. Not only did he say he'd do it again, he said, damn right, I would do it again, Brian.
Yeah, so they are actually on the same page about this. I know that today the Warriors did not provide an update, and then Kevin Durant provided an update, and it made it seem like they were operating independently of each other, which obviously is concerning with his free agency coming up, but that is not the actuality. They were on the same page. The Warriors knew he was having surgery today. They were in communication with him, and he and Steve Kerr said the exact same thing, which is Kevin said, I made the decision to play with the understanding of what was happening, and Steve basically is not backing down. They're saying that, yes, it was a terrible incident. It was a sports tragedy, a basketball tragedy, but both sides appear to be saying, look, we're not going to focus on blame here. We're going to focus on recovery. That said, Sage, it still remains an incredible blow to this whole organization.
Absolutely, and I want to emphasize what you said there because he was specific, Kevin Durant, in his post there saying, I wanted to be out there because that's what I do, and I wanted to help my teammates as we take another look at it there. So again, they do seem to be on the same page. People can stir the pot. And hey, there's probably a lot more to this, but right now they're all saying the same thing. Real quick, Brian, obviously he can opt out of his deal come June 30th. This injury, as soon as it happened, we all said, wow, what next? What's he going to decide? What's your gut right now?
So in talking to people around the league, the expectation is to opt out of his contract. He's going to get max contract offers, maybe multiple ones. Kevin will not be hurt monetarily.
Sure.
But physically, he has got a long recovery.
Okay, Brian Windhorst with the very latest on Kevin Durant. And once again, everybody here, their minds on him, their hearts with him. But they have a job to do, and that is tomorrow night right here back in the Bay Area as they try to extend this series and who knows, maybe contend for a three-peat. Let's go back to Bristol.